She always knew how to keep her composure. Even with a shattered heart, even when her world was falling apart, Angie Dickinson would step into the spotlight with a smile, as if the world was still at her feet. But today, at 93, she no longer feels the need to protect anyone. For the first time in decades, she's speaking openly about 5 men she will never forgive. These aren't just names from tabloid headlines. They were legends, idols, men with whom she shared the screen, the red carpet, and her bed. Yet their betrayals still live inside her. Her story begins far from Hollywood's glitter, in the cold, windswept plains of North Dakota, where on September 30th, 1931, a little girl named Angeline Brown was born. Who could have guessed that a child from the northern plains, who loved writing poetry and had never taken a single acting class, would one day become one of the most desired women in America? In the 1950s and 70s, she burst into Hollywood as an outsider, but within a few short years she outshone hundreds of other beauties. More than 50 television shows, dozens of films, and most importantly, she became the first truly sexual female action hero in American cinema. In an era when women on screen were almost always just a backdrop for men, her characters were dangerous, sharp, and daring. Rio Bravo, Dressed to Kill, and of course, Policewoman, the series that made her the face of a new era in television. But success always came at a price. She lost 4 major roles simply because she refused to sleep with producers. The press idolized her as a sex goddess, yet behind closed doors, the names she was called were far crueler. Her romance with Frank Sinatra was a mix of passion and suffocating jealousy. He could shut down an entire film production if the script called for her to kiss another man. "I loved him," Angie later admitted, "but with him I was never myself." Then came the blow from which no one truly recovers. Her only daughter, Nikki, born with severe autism, took her own life at the age of 40. Angie gave no interviews, shed no tears for the cameras. She simply wrote, "I survived, but a part of me died with her." Now, having outlived all her enemies and almost all her friends, she has nothing left to fear. She no longer hides names, no longer worries about protecting the reputations of those who once held her hand and then betrayed her. There is a special kind of freedom in that, bitter but utterly real. In Hollywood's Golden Chronicles, they were hailed as the It Couple. Magazine covers captured their dazzling smiles. Gossip columns sang their praises. But behind the glossy photographs was a story Angie Dickinson herself would later call the most dangerous relationship of her life. Frank Sinatra knew how to enchant. His voice sent millions of women into a frenzy. His gaze could outshine the brightest spotlights. To Angie, he was a dream come to life. Morning bouquets, quiet dinners by the pool, whispered words that made her feel as if she were the only woman in the world. She trusted him with all her heart, with all her youth, with all the naive readiness to believe. But this fairy tale had sharp edges. If she landed a role with a kissing scene, the script might be thrown in her face, followed by Frank's cold words, "You belong to me." He forbade her from meeting or even befriending men, showing up unannounced on set just to make sure his rules were obeyed. When she dared to audition for a film he hadn't approved, she returned home to devastation. Her belongings destroyed, their photographs burned. He didn't hide her from the public, but he kept her in a cage, its bars made of fear and control. He decided her contracts, her co-stars, her schedule, and sometimes even dictated when she could sleep. In her diary, she once wrote, "It didn't matter to him whether I loved him. What mattered was that I forgot there was anyone else in the world." The breaking point came in 1970. Angie had been cast in the lead role of an independent film expected to win critical acclaim. But in the middle of the night, the director received a call from Sinatra. His voice was icy. "If she stays in that film, forget about working in Hollywood ever again." By morning, the role was gone, no explanation given. That's when she realized life with Frank was life inside a gilded cage, where the shine only masked the emptiness. "I loved the man every woman dreamed of," she would say later, "but it cost me my soul." After Sinatra, another man entered her life. He walked beside her toward the altar, swore eternity, promised to be her rock. But in the end, he betrayed her in ways she never imagined. Lee Marvin, rugged on the outside, even more dangerous on the inside. He never raised a hand, but his stare alone could make her shrink in fear. Even during their joint film projects, he couldn't stand the thought of her sharing attention with anyone else. Their movie Point Blank became a legend, but behind the scenes, a silent, exhausting war raged between them. In the mid-60s, when the world of cinema was dazzlingly bright yet merciless, she stepped onto the set with the same reckless determination her on-screen heroine showed when walking straight into danger. To audiences, she and her co-star seemed like the perfect pair, allies in a game of revenge and risk. But behind the scenes, the story was very different. From the very first day of filming, Lee Marvin made it clear she wasn't welcome in his world. He wouldn't look her in the eye, wouldn't greet her, wouldn't rehearse with her. On set, his voice was cold as steel. "I'm not sharing the frame with a doll." Later, behind a closed door, she overheard him yelling at the director, "I'm the star here. Nobody buys a ticket to watch her giggle in a short skirt." To him, she was a face for a glossy magazine cover, not for serious cinema. Every shared scene became